He says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through Him who gives me strength. You know, happiness is available to every one of you. And it's not going to be determined on whether or not you have a big meal or you're fasting, whether you have the most expensive clothes or the clothes at the Goodwill. Because, friend, it doesn't matter what your circumstances is, because happiness is not based on circumstances. It's based on your inner perception of things. If you believe you are blessed and rich, it doesn't matter if you live in a big mansion or you live in a small apartment, because everything starts on the inside. Happiness begins on the inside. And this is what he's saying. I have learned this. Can y'all say learn? The fact that he says, I have learned the secret of being content tells me this, that none of us are born with contentment, because we have to learn it. You understand that? There are certain things that we're born with. I don't need to learn to breathe. I don't need to learn to look. But there are certain things I need to learn, because I don't know it unless I study it. And the fact is, contentment is nothing. It is something that none of us are born with. If you don't believe that, then take a little kid and bring him into a toy store, but don't buy him anything. And see how he feels after you take him out. I need that. And children are the most innocent among us. They're the closest to God that any human being can be. And yet they don't have contentment. Now, we learn not to cry, but we have our own little way to pout. We're grumpy. We gossip. We talk. We have our own way of crying. Paul says, I've learned something. I've learned the secret of being content. You know what the secret is? Are you ready? Here it is. It's in the word contentment. Now, if I was to ask you, what is contentment? What definition would you give? Well, can I tell you, in the Greek word for content literally means to be independent of the circumstances. Did you know that's what contentment is? Most people think of contentment as someone with no ambition and no goals. They just kind of float through life, and I don't care what happens. I have no goal. I have no ambition. If I get that job, I get it. If I have a nice house, I have it. But I don't really care about anything. I just let life be. No, contentment isn't a person walking without goals. It is a person who's independent of the circumstances while he's on the journey to reach his goals. So while he's headed to reach his goals, he's not going to be disturbed because he has circumstances, obstacles, problems that are affecting his reaching the goal. He still learns to be happy on the journey to the goals, and he's just not happy when he reaches the destination. Because listen to me, if all you are is happy when you arrive at Disneyland, you're going to be miserable for 12 hours driving to LA. And if the only time you can get happy is when you finally get on the ride. You get on that ride, whoa, yeah. You go on the ride, yeah. And it stops, you get off. How long did it take? That was fun, 2.5 minutes. How long was the line? An hour and a half. And you know what I've learned? And I think you know this to be true, is that these big moments in our life, like getting married, graduating, getting our first job, buying your first car, those moments are very rare in our life. They happen once in a great while. But most of our life is filled with a bunch of just ordinary days. And friend, if all you can do is be happy on those big days, but you can't enjoy being in line for an hour and a half, you're missing out on the whole fun. It's not just being on the ride, it's enjoying the line. Hello? Pastor, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to enjoy the line. You better enjoy the line, because you're going to spend more time in the line than you're on the ride. And in life, we are spending more time in line than the ride. And what Paul is saying is, I've learned something that I don't need to have everything in my life, all the rich foods and all the nice clothes and all the big houses to be happy. I've learned that I can be happy on the inside before I have all those things on the outside. I read the story about a rich dad. He thought his son didn't appreciate his wealth. They had a big mansion, they had a big swimming pool in the backyard, and they had very expensive furniture. So the father said to his son, "Son, I want you to know how the poor live. So I've arranged a time. We're going to go to this very poor family. They live out in the boonies by a little river down there. They have no expensive furniture. They have no light. They have no TV. And for a whole weekend, we're going to spend time with the poor, because I want you to understand how the poor really live." So that weekend, the father and the son went to go spend time with this poor family. Well, there was no TV, or there was no swimming pool, so the boy played out at the creek, little stream that they had. And at nighttime, there was no TV for the boy to watch, so the family all gathered around outside on the porch under the stars, and they just talked and they sang songs, and they just had a lot of fun out on the porch. And they did this for these 2 nights, these 2 days. After it was over, the father took the little boy in the car and they drove home. And the father said, "Son, did you learn something about how the poor live?" "Oh, yes, Daddy, I learned so much how the poor live." "Well, son, tell me the difference. What's the difference between them and us?" He said, "Well, Dad, we have 1 dog and they have 4 dogs. We have a swimming pool in the backyard and they have an endless stream. We have fancy lanterns in our house and they have stars at night. We watch TV by ourselves and they sit around as a family and have fun. Daddy, I've learned how the poor live." We have to start changing our perspective. We think we have to have things to be happy. Today, you see a lot of young teenagers, and I'm speaking to a lot of young folks here, and the teenagers think they have to have these designer jeans. They have to have a cell phone. Nowadays, you're getting 8-year-olds needing a cell phone. For what? People say, "Are you against us having a lot of wealth?" No, I'm for you having things. I just don't want things to have you. And some of us, we're in bondage to things. We think we need them to enjoy life. But see, what happens is if things have us, then those things become idols. And we are literally breaking the 2nd commandment. And the only reason why God doesn't want us to have idols is because idols cannot satisfy us. Only He can satisfy us. And that's why Paul says, "I can do all things through Christ who gives me the strength." He's recognizing that contentment is supernatural. You can only have contentment when you have the creator of the universe living in you. And when you have Him, then what does it matter if you don't have a Mercedes and you have a Hyundai instead? What does it matter if you don't have a 4,000 square foot home and instead you have a 400 square foot apartment? What does that matter? If you don't have clothes that come out of the men's factory, and instead you have clothes that come out of the Goodwill. When you have Jesus, you can wear clothes from the Goodwill and be happy. You can wear clothes at the Union Fashion and be happy. It doesn't make any difference because you have Him.